he is 100% genuine, and he's really communicates in a way that people can understand. And, he's not an intellectual who is talking in abstractions.
Right.
He's saying we just need hospitals, schools, roads, sanitation, electricity, et cetera, et cetera. And food, yeah. And as I said on the Democracy Now! Interview, you look at the Russian Revolution, it was based on the same thing, land, peace, bread. So he's basically taking the essence of all the major social revolutions we've seen in history, social revolutions in the sense that it's not a change just in the, president or prime minister, but in the ownership of the means of production. That's what he's proposing. He's saying, we, the people, need to take over the factories, the ports, the, administration of the state, etc.
Like ants in a colony, organize the wealth into a socialist economy. A way of life based off the comedies. And all my comrades is ready, we can spread the scene. And all my comrades is ready, we can spread the scene. And all my comrades is ready, we can spread the scene.
All right, hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another Subversive History interview. Today we are continuing our educational quest regarding Haiti, and we are very lucky to be joined by Kim Ives. Kim is a filmmaker, a journalist, and a representative of Haiti Liberté. He has been featured on Al Jazeera, Democracy Now!, TRT World, and many more. Kim, thank you so much. He recently co-directed a series with director Dan Cohen regarding current events in Haiti. So, Kim, if you would just please give us a brief introduction of who you are and kind of what you do so our audience knows who we're speaking with.
Right. I am an editor and a journalist here at Haiti Liberté, and I also work with an outfit called Crowing Rooster Arts, which makes films. So I've spent most of my last 50 years of life working as a engaged journalist, shall we say, around Haiti, making films and working on newspapers, basically in the role of pushing back against the mainstream narrative, which is always trying to mislead and confuse people. So I was raised in a Haitian family, basically, and that meant that I was well suited to get on that particular barricade of the informational war and ideological war. So that's what I've been doing for the past 50 years.
Amazing. So the one thing I did want to ask is exactly how long have you been doing work with Haiti? I think you mentioned it, but your first, or I don't know if it's your first project, but the first project that we're going to be talking about yours today is a film called Bitter Cane that I believe was released in 1983. So I imagine you had to be doing work probably years prior to 83 to really even be in the position to make a film such as that, correct? So how long have you been having this kind of intimate relationship with Haiti?
Well, that's just it. Yeah, it started about 50 years ago. I basically got out of school and immediately was drafted into the Haitian liberation struggle. And we used to go around with a slideshow. I don't know if you guys even know what that is, but, it's like a carousel and it would, ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. And I'd give it
still had those in the 90s.
Yeah, right. And then the Haitians said, no, this isn't quite going to make it. We're not going to do it with a slideshow in the station wagon. We need something that we can show on the big screens around the world. And that's where Bitter Cane was more or less my first mission, my first task. And so that was basically 6-7 years in the making because it was a very difficult thing. Nowadays, you can make a film with your iPhone, but back then you needed a Aton or an Eclair or a Ariflex camera and the Nagra, and it was, a whole different kettle of fish back in the days of 16 millimeter film. Right. And under a dictatorship, it wasn't easy. So that was the big challenge of Bitter Cane. We managed to do it and, got an award-winning film out of the process. And then I spent years doing newspaper work, basically starting in 83, the same year Bitter Cane came out. And so that is really an alternance between print and film that I've been doing.
So under a dictatorship with secret police You
Right.
managed to lug around this gigantic camera around. I assumed like transportation was like few and far between.
Oh God, it
Like
was
the price of fuel and everything at the time too.
well, yeah. I mean, it was maybe better than it is now, but yeah, it was the biggest challenge was how to do it without being picked up by the paramilitary force of the day called the Tontomacuts. Who were sort of the eyes, ears, and fists of the dictatorship, the Duvalier dictatorship of, but this was under Baby Doc, Jean-Claude Duvalier, and his father, Papa Doc, was in power since 1957. So we were really in their heyday. They were all powerful, omnipotent, and we had to make sure that we had a good cover. So a lot of it was trying to figure that out, and it changed depending on what the circumstances were. But we managed to get the film in and out. We shot at a ratio of about 1 to 2, which was pretty unheard of. Usually it's 1 to 26, I think was what they proposed. But, every 5 feet of film that we shot, we had to really plan it out. So.
Right.
I think the film is amazing. Even going back, it's maybe a few decades old, but I think that's what we're going to talk about is that it seems like a lot of the issues in that film are still very present today. But before we get into those specifics, I have to just ask you, because I'm a huge fan of this book, is the name of the film based on Bitter Fruit regarding Guatemala? Was this something that was inspirational to you to call it Bitter Cane?
No, it's funny, but I think there have been a number of bitter titled books and films. But no, Bitter Cane was just at one point the word came up, Bitter Cane, and we just liked the ring of it. It was like cellar door or something, that just had a certain ring to it. So we stuck with that, and it sort of fit the film.
Okay, great. So with that, I want to start with one of the opening clips of the film, and I think this kind of like encapsulate what I would consider the opening thesis of the project. So if we could just pull that up, and maybe we could just like ask you about this situation specifically.
In the past 10 years, thousands of Haitians have fled their country on a journey that brings them face to face with deportation, imprisonment, and death. Their flight seems a paradox, since it comes in a decade when Haiti has received more international aid and investment than ever before. But this foreign aid and investment are changing the basic structures of Haitian society, and thus, in fact, are causing the flight of Haitian refugees.
So that kind of is like alluding to or that's kind of directly about what I was alluding to earlier. There's so much talk about Haitian migrants right now. Ever since Donald Trump made those comments during the presidential debate and all of this controversy surrounding Springfield, Ohio, when I hear that and it says, oh, there's a migrant crisis coming from Haiti, and that, oh, they've been receiving all of this aid, so why are they so poor? And there's foreign investment, and it seems that this aid seems to be hurting Haiti more than helping it. And I say that also with I just have recently been reading this book, Aid State, by Jake Johnston. Which has talked recently about the aid dependence of Haiti. So I just need to ask about that 30-second clip there. Like, the situations that are going on then, 40 years ago, when you released this film, seem to not have been ameliorated over these past 40 years, despite aid and investment. Correct? Would you say that that's correct?
Correct. Yes. Basically, the films that I've done and that we're going to see today, I guess, Bitter Cane and then the Another Vision series, really bookend a period which we could call the dismantlement of the Haitian neocolony. Originally, the neocolonies, the way the U.S. set it up after they invaded Haiti, Nicaragua, Dominican Republic, the Philippines, etc., was they would set it up with a strong man, a tin horn dictator, who would have the army and they'd go out and crush riots or peasants or whatever it was. And a lot of that we look at in Bitter Cane. But really at the beginning of the 80s, during the 70s and 80s, it all began to shift, and they started to say, okay, these tin horn dictators aren't working out so well. We have to find a new paradigm, a new formula. And what that was the International Peacekeeping Force, the UN. We're going to put in people to govern the place through these phony baloney elections, the same way we have in this country, in the US, where the candidate who gets the most money wins. And then, if there's problems, we'll send in the UN, basically cheap soldiers from around the world. And we'll say it's the world, stopping this. So this was their way of basically stopping all these Che Guevaras and revolutions that were being spawned by these terribly arbitrary and corrupt dictators. So really, that's the Haiti we're looking at there. And there's an economic shift coming in at the time then, too, because really neoliberalism is beginning. And these colonies were mostly being used to suck out raw materials like agricultural product, bananas, right? Banana Republic, pineapples, sisal. Haiti was making rubber. It was a disastrous project for the Second World War airplanes. Sugar cane, of course, and coffee, etc. So mineral extraction, bauxite, nickel, gold, whatever. So they were mainly used for that, and they would use these people for that. But pretty soon, it was getting to the point where they were starting to say, hey, the people work cheaper there, cheaper than here in the U.S. Let's send the factories down there. So really, that's the beginning of the dismantlement of what was a fairly stable economic system, as exploitative as it may have been, in Haiti for about, let's say, 60, 70 years since the Marines intervened in 1915 for the first time. So they're starting to send down more and more factories to Haiti, and at the same time, they're beginning to dump their agricultural surplus on the country: wheat, rice, corn, and
which is subsidized, right? Like it's subsidized in the United States, so
right?
It's cheaper than they can't compete in the market with subsidized.
No way,
from the United States.
Some guy with a mile-wide combine in Arkansas is not, going to be able to have any problem with a guy with a hoe in a field in Haiti. So, so they basically flooded these countries. So this worked out perfectly for them as they rubbed their hands together. We destroy all the peasants, and now they end up workers in the cities.
It's
so
like
that's
the enclosure of the commons. It's like the enclosure of the commons all over again. And
exactly. And so now the whole world system begins to shift. And pretty soon we're not doing any manufacturing in the United States whatsoever. It's all being done overseas in these cheap labor havens, of which Haiti was, as it always is, the pioneer. And then gradually, this destroyed the societies to where you got to the point where you had such a huge lumpen proletariat in the cities, where 5% maybe of the city's population. When we're filming Bitter Cane at that time, the population of Port-au-Prince was about 500,000. Now it's 3 million. So a lot of those people are surviving just by hawking bottles of Coca-Cola and, broken radios. And, just it's a very difficult situation. And that's really Bitter Cane is showing the beginning of that.
It's amazing that you, Johnny. Okay, yeah, Johnny, did you want to say something good?
Yeah, so I believe the filming was in 1983, and if I'm not mistaken, 1978 they had culled all of the Creole pigs in Haiti because they diagnosed them with Asian swine flu. So it took such a ridiculous level. They literally killed all of the pigs that they could have possibly relied on.
There's an interesting talk about subversive history. That's an even more interesting. It wasn't 1978, I don't believe. It was 1982 or 3.
My bad.
And this was because essentially they were trying to sabotage Cuba.
Right.
And so they were flying these pelts, which were impregnated with swine flu, in a Cessna out of Port-au-Prince Airport out over Cuba. Well, they dropped the pelts and some swine food started, but the Cubans had it together and they immediately quarantined it and they, stopped the thing short. But somewhere in Haiti, this thing spread. And all of a sudden, all of Haiti, or a lot of pigs in Haiti had swine flu. Well, again, they rubbed their hands together at USAID and all the pig farmers, and they said, "Oh, great! Let's turn this into an opportunity." And so,
right. Life gives you lemons.
Yeah. So they massacred, even though a lot of them weren't sick. They massacred all the Creole pigs, these very hardy black little pigs which could eat, cardboard and survive.
Yeah.
And they brought in these big, what were they called, the cochon creole, the white pigs, which were these big fat things which needed concrete floors and air conditioning and everything. And they died like flies, but they brought them in. And the destruction of the Creole pigs is a very seminal period. There's even a film about it where they, really destroyed Haitian agriculture because the pigs were basically your bank. When you needed money, you sold your pig. And anyway, that's that story.
So you actually were specifically referring to this time period that we were kind of equating to the enclosure of the commons, where maybe someone who would have been agricultural or even subsistence farmers are effectively kind of robbed of their land, and then they all kind of have to make this mad dash into the city centers to now sell their own labor as their only commodity. We actually have a clip that kind of explains this. That's from your documentary. It's the next clip that we have in line here. So it's actually kind of fluid that you just brought that up, and we can actually illustrate that right now with the clip.
More and more people are coming into Port-au-Prince looking for jobs, leaving whatever they were doing in terms of farming on their own land. And consequently, what's happening now in Port-au-Prince is a huge slum area, and it's becoming a real problem.
In the past 10 years, there has been a huge migration of peasants from the countryside to the cities. This is because of all the foreign investment that has gone into areas such as infrastructure. When the U.S. builds roads, dams, and canals in the countryside, paying the workers with surplus food, which they can't sell anywhere else, this makes the value of the land rise. Then the big landowners kick peasants off the land so they can rent it to foreign companies.
So yeah, like what you were describing right there. I think that clip kind of succinctly kind of illustrates everything that you were just saying right there about how it is the foreign investment that is actually causing this kind of because I think that's the image that a lot of people have of Haiti in their mind. Slums that are around Port-au-Prince and the shanty towns or whatever you would want to refer to them as. But this is something that was what you would say is like the direct consequence of this foreign investment process.
Yeah, essentially the flight of humans from Haiti is in the face of the flight of capital from the U.S. The U.S. industries, capital setting up in Haiti basically was pushing people first into the cities and then onto the sea. And that's, we can bring it to the present day with the Biden program and giving people visas. They're trying to do it more humanely, shall we say, at this time, but it's the same process.
Got it. Okay. So we do have another clip here, and actually this is going to maybe get a little bit more into the specifics of the incentives that are afforded to the American companies that were going to Haiti at this time. So we can watch that one now.
Haiti is basically tax-free for the first 9 years. In the industrial park, which is financed by Inter-American Development Bank and the Haitian government, it's tax-free for the first 9 years.
And after 9 years?
After 9 years, there's a graduated scale as far as taxes are concerned, but that scale is very minimal.
In addition to the tax holidays and the entrance of duty-free materials and equipment, and also all this material goes out of the country duty-free, there is also another advantage that Haiti has that most people are not aware of, and that is simply that there are no restrictions on the repatriation of capital. The dollar is allowed to circulate freely, and there is no restriction on the dollar leaving the country as well. Another advantage is that this, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the only countries in all of Latin America where the foreigner can own his own business 100%.
Yeah, so could you maybe talk about a little bit of those policies and how they were, these kind of like free market policies that are ostensibly to build an economy up, were actually just a detriment to the development of Haiti?
Sure, they were free trade zones, as they're called, and they're like a cancer which is spread all over the island now. I think the Dominican Republic has 33 of them. Haiti has 3, basically. The one we're filming there in Port-au-Prince, right near the airport, Sonapi, and now there are 2 more in the north. One is built right on the Dominican border, and the other one is built on some of Haiti's most precious fertile farmland, which they basically bulldoze to put these big cement hangars to make electronics and things. And of course, this is going to be necessary for the production that they're going to have to move here when the war with China starts soon. And, you know, they're going to have to be looking for cheap labor, and $5 a day in Haiti is as cheap as it gets in this hemisphere. So anyway, we can get into all that later perhaps, but
okay.
The point was that, this was the period that they were pioneering these cheap labor platforms. I could call them cheap labor prisons in Latin America and Haiti. This was kind of a new thing happening in Haiti, but now you have it in Costa Rica and Honduras and et cetera.
So pretty much like what we're looking at is like the recreation of sort of like a company town for most people that are maybe more familiar with that, right? Like the old mining towns where you're not really paid in real money, you're paid in company dollars, sort of like monopoly money.
Well, yeah, you were actually paid in the currency of the, but there were no taxes on it. There was no, the stuff came in duty free. The state got nothing from it. Only the labor came from and stayed in Haiti.
Right.
So we're going to actually bring things back to the United States now. And this is actually, in my opinion, one of the most interesting clip for me. And it's a clip of a woman who I believe lost her job in the United States because of economic downturn and outsourcing. So can we just play this real quick?
To re-imprisonment and deportation.
Well, don't they give them welfare and everything when they come here and to treat them better than they do us? If I'm working and still ain't got enough to feed my family, they won't put me on welfare, but yet they'll put them on welfare meant to get here.
Put who?
The Haitians or anybody else that comes.
You think they do?
Even the Mexican people, if they come across the border, well, they just give them a handout and say, come on, stay here.
Do you think they do give them welfare?
Yeah,
Sure they do.
I disagree with, that's what the news wants us to think.
Yeah.
I think if you look...
Shout out to that man.
A lot of states where these little, where they call them little business people, they look for people that's out of work, don't know their rights, and mainly Cubans and other people that are exiled or runaways from other countries because of the oppressed conditions. That's the kind that some of the American, so-called honorable American businesses look for, and it's not always a handout. Most of the time, I think they're extorted of their labor and just kept in a very poor condition for years. That's
So, I wanted to share that because this seems to be like an almost equivalent echo from what I'm hearing today. I think I saw someone in Springfield, Ohio saying this exact thing, like, I'm poor and I can't get welfare, and a Haitian person comes here and they buy him a house.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah.
And it's it's uninformed and it's very, misunderstanding of the situation. But can you maybe just talk about like how this situation, it seems like it's a new situation if you haven't been paying attention to it right now in 2024 with Donald Trump and all this, but like this exact same type of rhetoric has been going on for decades.
Yeah, well, this is what you're showing has been the remastered version of Bitter Cane, and a shout out to Indie Collect, which takes the old classic documentaries of the 1980s, which I'm happy to say Bitter Cane is among, and remasters them from the original negative, and you end up getting, a very faithful version of the film from what it looked like as a 16 millimeter projection. So that was an astonishing parallel, which has come up as we've shown the new version of the film to audiences. We showed it at Brooklyn Academy of Music this past summer. I just showed in the Dominican Haitian Film Festival. It's showing in Vermont next week or next month. And essentially, 42 years ago, you have the exact same thing being said by that woman in Spencer, West Virginia, that's being said today in the various social media clips we've seen online from Springfield, Ohio. So yes, it's the same thing. They are bringing these people in now in a more controlled way than they were back in 1982, or that would have been 1982 we were filming that. So people now are brought in under this, what's called the CHNV visa, where they give Cuba, Haiti, Venezuela, and Nicaraguans 30,000 per month could come in to work for, very cheap labor. And of course, it makes people very bitter. So that is the pitting, the dividing of the working class that they're always trying to do.
Right. So we're going to kind of wrap it up here on the Bitter Cane. I'm just going to bring it up. Instead of even playing the clip, I'm just going to ask you, I know that the end of the film, it says, we need to actually remove the comprador class. We need to remove these, these investors and these land speculators and the big farm owners and things like that. And we need a revolution. Unfortunately, that prescription was not fulfilled, correct?
Right. Well, it kind of was fulfilled because this film, The Bitter Cane, came out in 1983. And in some ways, it contributed, along with the paper that was launched that same year, Haiti Progrès, to the fall of the Duvalier dictatorship in 1986, which I think Brian talked about a bit in his talk with you guys. And, the U.S. thought it was going to be easy to do what they'd been doing all along. They just take their World Bank technocrat or, International Development Bank or World Bank, whoever, stick him in and, pay the money and he's in. And they thought it would be a cakewalk, but it wasn't. And it turned out that anti-imperialist liberation theologian priest, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, came in. And that's where there was a political revolution. Basically, from 86 till 1990, it was mayhem in the streets as the genie came out of the bottle and wrought havoc. And then he was elected, and then we entered this period of 2 decades of coups d'etats by the U.S. sending in international peacekeeping forces. So, that's essentially what brings us to the current period of Haiti, which has been basically run over by a bulldozer and then hit by a tornado.
Right. So, that kind of brings us up into more of like the time period that you were filming your series, Another Vision, with Dan Cohen, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So just to kind of discuss that a little bit as we get into some of the clips we have from that series, can you just kind of like introduce this character known as Barbecue? Because if I've noticed now, this guy has actually become extremely either, popular or infamous or however you want to say it on like social media, on YouTube and things like that. It seems like there's a lot of people that are going down there to meet this guy, to interview him. The Wikipedia calls him a warlord and a gang leader and all of these things. Right. Can you just maybe like, introduce who this person is, since he seems to figure so prominently in your series?
Well, under Aristide, as I said, there were 2 coups d'etats, one in 1991 and one in 2004. And each one of them featured some villains, bad guys, who were heading death squads and were basically being the arm of the U.S., covertly, of course, and the Haitian bourgeoisie.
Yeah.
Like
Emmanuel Constant,
like Toto Constant, Emmanuel Toto Constant, in the 1990s, who was sort of the face of the death squads, and then a guy called Guy Philippe. But that gets very complicated because today he's kind of a hero. But back then, in 2004. From 2001 to 2004, he was sort of a coup leader leading a band of CIA or U.S. supported rebels. And so when we got to 2020 and 2019 and 20, Haiti had been sort of in a period where the U.S. had managed to kick out the alternates of Jean-Bertrand Aristide and his so-called twin, a guy called René Préval, who basically from 1991 to 2011 gave us, for those 20 years, we had an alternance of their powers, even though they were interrupted by coups d'etats and interventions. So in 2011, the Obama State Department basically engineered the installation of a pro-U.S., pro-capitalist regime in the form of Michel Martelly, which became known as the PHTK, which stood for the Haitian Bald-Headed Party. The guy was bald, and, tête calée also means in Creole, headlong, head first, full on, So it's kind of a double entendre. And in any case, by 2019-20, things were really coming unraveled. Jovenel Moïse, who was the president at that time, was a very unpopular figure. He'd been sort of read the Riot Act by Donald Trump, who said, listen, you got to help us with Venezuela. So he became sort of the hood ornament on the U.S. tank, which was trying to crush Venezuela. And he was very unpopular in every way. But there was the emergence in the slums of this guy, Jimmy Cherizier, and his front called the G9. And at first, we drank the Kool-Aid. We said, this is Toto Constant. This is Guy Philippe. This is, the bad guy now. So here he is, and we were publishing the human rights reports and stuff here at Haiti Liberté. And then one day, my director here at Haiti Liberté, Bethany Dupont, sat me down. He said, listen, I think we got this all wrong. I think I've been watching this guy who basically was doing his own videos and, putting out his message. And he said, I think the guy's interesting. Go meet with him. So I went down. I was sent down to Port-au-Prince, and I spent a weekend with him, 2 days. And I came back and I told my director, I said, man, you were right. This guy is the genuine article. He's the real McCoy. He's an amazing, figure. And, as a Marxist-Leninist, we're sort of taught, okay, it's kind of a revolutionary vanguard party which comes in and will sort of impregnate the masses with the ideas, and the revolution will happen, as maybe it happened in Russia or China or Cuba, etc. But this was really organic, right out of the population. So anyway, that's where that came from.
So he, sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good. Just good.
I was going to say he definitely, what's the phrase? The marks of capital are all over my body, right? He definitely delivers that message.
Yeah.
Honestly.
So in your second episode of Another Vision, barbecue, I think kind of, and the reason I'm calling it barbecue is my French / Creole is even worse than my Spanish. And if you know how bad my Spanish is.
Barbecue is fine. People call them barbecue. It's okay. But it didn't come from him burning people. It was just a kid. His mom sold barbecued meat, and, that's how he got it.
So we actually have a clip here of him kind of explaining the goals of G9. So we can just play that now for audience, and then I just have a follow-up question regarding it.
côté 5% population contrôler 85% richesse pays. Nous avons 60% moun qui emballage 35 ans. Nous avons 70% moun qui pas travail qui dans chômage. Chiffre ça yo. C'est pas moi-même qui inventé chiffre yo. C'est réalité pays. Jodi a moi osé attaquer système là. C'est pour ça que nèg yo vle détruire. Nous voulons une révolution côté que nous pral répartir richesse pays pour tout haïtien joindre. Même Jean-Papa Nation, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, te voulait pour tout petit pays à joindre. Et c'est pour ça qu'ils ont assassiné. Nous voulons une société côté que ce n'est pas sous couleur peau, côté que ce n'est pas nos mamans, ce n'est pas nos papas qui déterminent les chansons dans la vie. Ni tout, ce n'est pas dans quelle zone où sorti qui détermine si nous avons libéré ou si nous avons condamné. Haïti n'a prévé. Haïti nous voulons. Son Haïti qui investit dans propre petite terre. Son Haïti qui investit dans la production locale. Ça nous doit connaître système ça qui l'a aujourd'hui. Son système qui va y un petit groupe monde toute richesse pays. Nous-mêmes nous proposons un système qui voulait tout bagaille mais pour tout le monde.
Over the next year, the G9.
And if we were still in the Cold War, the U.S. would not miss a chance to take that guy out.
Well, they're actively trying, and that's kind of my follow-up question here.
Well, that
is that, you know, all these reports, the Wikipedia, Vice, the State Department, they call this guy a gang leader, a warlord, and all of these things. So, like, you know, my question to you is, with all your intimate experience in Haiti and the time you've spent on the ground and everything like that, do you believe that that message is sincere?
Absolutely. No, that was, and he's shown it with consistency since then, because we were one of the first crews to really come and put him out and say, hey, wow, this guy. I mean, Vice, which is sort of an arm of U.S. disinformation itself, did a bunch which sort of vilified him and mocked him and so forth. But no, he is 100% genuine, and he's really communicates in a way that people can understand. And, you know, he's not an intellectual who is talking in abstractions.
Right.
He's saying we just need hospitals, schools, roads, sanitation, electricity, et cetera, et cetera. And food, yeah. And as I said on the Democracy Now! Interview, you know, I mean, you look at the Russian Revolution, it was based on the same thing, land, peace, bread. You know, so he's basically taking the essence of all the major social revolutions we've seen in history, social revolutions in the sense that it's not a change just in the, you know, president or prime minister, but in the ownership of the means of production. That's what he's proposing. He's saying, we, the people, need to take over the factories, the ports, the, you know, administration of the state, et cetera. So, and land. And the U.S. really saw it before we did. You know, we were so kind of lazy, I could say, in, you know, a reflex of going into, and the whole, you know, the brainwashing, even among us, you know, as if we were supposed to be immune, we were affected by it. And unfortunately, a lot of people on the left still are infected by it. And in fact, because of face-saving dynamics, you know, that it's hard for them now to get off their high horse and admit, hey, okay, this guy is something different and he is really trying to lead something.
So now the next clip, I think that this is a really interesting thing. And I'm going to kind of ask you a question once we follow, as a follow-up to this, kind of about his overall popularity. Okay, so we can play the clip first, but then that's kind of like the topic of discussion following that.
Mm-hmm.
A week later, the FRG9 called for Jovenel Moise's removal from power in a downtown Port-au-Prince demonstration.
bagyo, kita supposé mettre l'hôpital, kita supposé mettre boucaille pour nous dormir, kita supposé créer l'école pour petit. C'est l'argent ça va mettre ça dans l'école pour tuer nous d'accord, quand ça va utiliser ça dans le monde. Sur le système non dit nous pas révolutionnaire, parce qu'on dit révolutionnaire par contre des chouquets. Nous devons demander sur le système de Fidel Castro des jeunes corps et que pour le faire révolution.
You know, in showing that right there, you know, unless that's some kind of like deviously orchestrated public gathering where everyone has been forced there with guns to their heads to pretend that they resonate with this message and everything like that, it does appear that at least within these neighborhoods, this is an incredibly popular figure, right?
Right. Well, he's become even more popular now because he succeeded in his, I don't want to get ahead of us, but, you know, he succeeded in ousting the U.S. puppet Prime Minister Ariel Henry in February of this year. And now, you know, in the social media period, even though the U.S. is, of course, trying to shut it down, if we take the comments of Hillary Clinton and John Kerry in recent weeks about, you know, we got to get social media under control. But he's taken to TikTok and he holds these basically town meetings, which are national meetings with thousands and thousands of people listening, where he explains everything. And it's really quite phenomenal. They keep shutting him down and then he pops up on another. It's kind of a game of whack-a-mole, which is happening. And, you know, so, but, you know, we're in the midst of it. I think, you know, they've just launched a whole campaign of saying, oh, they're massacring the people. But, you know, revolutions are like this, basically, just like you have in a union battle. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? And you have, you know, workers fighting workers because the striking workers are fighting the scabs who many of them have genuine concerns, might have a sick kid at home or, you know, something they have to get money for, but, you know, they end up fighting. So in any case, those battles he's been having with the recalcitrant forces in the country, and of course the bourgeoisie is handing out money and guns and ammo right and left to try to create this division among the popular classes.
So one thing I wanted to talk to you about here, especially taking those last two clips into context, right, is that even on his Wikipedia page that I went on, you see this word gang, 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 leader, leader. Right. First of all, it says nothing about any kind of a political perspective or revolutionary perspective whatsoever. I thought that maybe they would have a footnote of saying, like, there is also an alternative idea that this could be like a political revolutionary movement. So my question to you is actually about this term gang, because we've seen throughout history revolutionary or social or political forces, they get branded as maybe terrorists. There's the old adage of one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, and we see, you know, something like Hamas or Hezbollah deemed as terrorists, or like in the case of Colombia, they call FARC guerrillas, but they don't want to call them necessarily revolutionary. It seems like this is almost a new branding label in Haiti to try to disparage and depoliticize this movement by referring to it as a gang. Would you agree to that?
Yes, I would. Precisely. It's just really a semantic difference. Back in 1915, they called the resistance fighters bandits. They were bandits in the hills. This was the Cacos, which we talk about in Bitter Cane, and they were to some extent, as I called them on Democracy Now, rural ruffians, you know, sort of hooligans who would come in on horses and do bad things in the city. And people were somewhat scared of them, but they ended up being forged into a fighting force. And very much that's the repeat of what's happening today. They call them, because there were a lot of neighborhood committees who did turn to criminality. And to some extent, ironically, they did it after the example set by the U.S., because in 2004, prior to 2004, you didn't really see kidnapping and so forth going on in Haiti. But on February 29, 2004, a U.S. SEAL team came in, went into Aristide's house, and kidnapped him and basically took him to the Central African Republic. And when that happened, the people said, oh, so kidnapping's on the table now, is it? And that's when it all started. And they started to use the kidnapping to, raise money and so forth. And of course, the bourgeoisie was in it too. There was a very famous case of a bourgeois, Clifford Brandt, who kidnapped another bourgeois called Moscoso because they had basically a fight over a contract from the government. And, again, they were using people, and the people sort of said, okay, if this how you make money now, okay, let's do it. And anyway, so those criminal gangs were basically what Cherizier's organization was built to stop. He was trying to stop the kidnapping, extortion, the crimes that they were doing, because he was a cop. He was a stellar cop. He was a very charismatic.
15 years on the force, right?
Yeah, 14 years. And he really loved the job, but then he saw that the whole institution was corrupt, as he explained in Another Vision. And, pretty soon when they drummed him out of that, because he, was getting wise to them, and because they were trying to pin things on him, and then the whole human rights organization, part of the soft power machinery, went after him. So, he basically was radicalized. And that's the most dangerous. When you have the straight arrow, the guy who is radicalized, now he's more dangerous than, the guy who was fighting you from the start.
So one follow-up question to that, and this is just something that I thought. So, I feel like sometimes, the United States State Department or whatever power may be that it's favorable to do this will call something like the PLO or Hamas or Hezbollah a terrorist organization because it conjures this image of this scary Arab terrorist, or in, whether it's Guatemala or Colombia, the scary Latin American guerrilla. But, do you think that the term gang appeals to, a racist sentiment within the West of, because they're black in Haiti, that they're trying to conjure up this white fright situation of this concept of a black gang member, and look at them, they have T-shirts over their faces and they have guns, so this can't be a revolutionary force, this can't be a politically competent force, this can't be a force that's concerned with social upheaval, this has to just be a criminal element like those other scary black people that we try to impose on you as well.
Totally. It's exactly that. They're demonizing them. They're vilifying them. So people are scared of them, and that these are people who are just ruthless monsters who love to kill people just because they love blood or something. Yeah, so, exactly. Even though they're the ones pleading, begging, saying, no, let's talk. We don't want to fight, and but nonetheless, the machinery just keeps on the old Mengele formula, lie, 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 something always remains.
The shocking thing about the machines, what would you call it, lie, right, about basically Haiti being an island murder factory, is that you would think that more people in the West that probably know very little, if anything, about Haiti would be more sympathetic. My God, these people are fleeing this fantastical murder island, right? God blessed it. They were able to make it here, and et cetera, et cetera. But no, it's just nothing but vitriol and antagonism to these people. That it's not to say that the exaggerations, right, have any bearing on the island of Haiti, but these people struggle, right, to just try and find any sort of relief, right, from this climactic environment that's not their doing. It's the U.S. It's a long history that led them to that conclusion that I have to go.
Sure. And it's very difficult to find a national group which is more upright than Haitians. I mean,
right.
They might have 2 pennies to rub together, and yet when they go out on Sunday to church, they're going to have a nice pressed shirt and pressed pants and be very presentable. And they arrive on time. I mean, they run New York City, they run Miami. I mean, the Haitians are they are the working class of much of the Western Hemisphere, the Bahamas for sure. So, this sort of smearing of their national characters, their dog and cat eaters, and their monsters, their gang, they just have no. It's like the old pictures of Teddy Roosevelt leading the little ring. I'm sure people have seen it, of toy boats around an island, with these kind of jumping up and down savages on it. This is the modern day equivalent of it 100 years later.
Right.
And exactly what you're saying are also the reports, the credible reports that are coming out of Springfield, Ohio. There's factories that are like, hey, there's a bunch of people that are around in this neighborhood. The American people around here, there's a bunch of them that are on drugs. They're not showing up on time. We hire these Haitians and they're here. They're always at their station. They're always working. They're dependable. They're on time. And then the church groups are also saying like, hey, we had like a dying church group here. And then the Haitians started coming in and now we have a vibrant church community. Exactly. So like exactly what you're saying there seems to be also playing out as evidenced from Springfield, Ohio currently. But in regards to kind of what we were talking about before is like, what are the grievances of the Haitian people that they would need some kind of like a revolutionary movement? We actually have two clips here, and Phil, we can just play these back to back if you want. It's the last two from this episode, and it's kind of like going to be a minute or so of just some of the Haitian people that are at this barbecue rally, kind of, expressing what their grievances are. So I just kind of, for the audience, I think it's important to hear that as well. It's like, okay, well, why do people in Haiti need a revolutionary movement?
C'est Lionel Gassi, c'est Yuri la tortue, c'est Reginald Boulos qui a décidé pour nous, nous faisons carrément des choucailles. Jodi, nous ne pouvons pas demander petit à l'étranger, pour mettre ça dans le pays, pour mettre la saline. C'est celle-là ici nous gagnons. Légitime violence, ils ont tiré sur nous, pour les tout ça.
Nous-mêmes, peuple à saline, nous mettons derrière pour nous chercher la mangeaille.
Bonjour, nous venons combien pour voter nous. Parce que si jeunes gagnent et l'âge capable d'avancer sur nous, là, nous finirons.
Nous venons là où la vie chère, gogo tout nous. Nous sommes présidents de notre pays, nous sommes présidents chez nous.
Parce que nous sommes petites, famille sont petites, nous mal vivre.
Nous besoin de nous besoin pour obtenir tout quartier nous. Parce que imaginez, nous avons pris gaz, nous avons pris balle, si nous avons à l'école. Parce que qui n'a pas affiché comme bon, si nous avons dit nous sommes révolutionnaires.
Jeune familier, je venais se couper tête cracher pour me payer.
Je dis, les ghettos en guerre, les ghettos en guerre, il y a pile monde qui content. Là, nous avons entre nous, ils content, c'est normal, c'est là qu'ils fait millions. Je dis, c'est l'idée Genève. Nous ne pouvons pas entre nous encore, parce que nous semblons avant, ils n'ont pas qu'à faire ma gourmet entre eux, ils n'ont qu'à faire capital politique. Je dis, même si papa Genève l'a dit, bataille révolution commencé. L'homme dit bataille révolution commencé, c'est pour nous jeunes ça qui revient nous de droit. L'homme dit ça qui revient de droit, c'est pour nous droit à la santé. Droit à l'éducation, droit pour un logement, faut un droit ça yo pour vivre dans pour monde. Même si moun Pétionville à vivre, même si moun Delmayo à vivre, parce que nous à l'école tout, nous à l'école, nous formons tout. Quel papi bien formé passer nous non? Mais pour qui ça nous même tout le temps, il y a marginalisé nous.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, with that, you know what I mean? Like, I think like, when people think that these people down there are these like illiterate, uneducated, they wouldn't even understand, you know what I mean? What they need in that country. They need the International Monetary Fund to tell them. They need the Clintons to tell them what they need. They need the United States, the USAID, or any of these people or foreign corporations to tell them what they need. And it makes them think like these no agency, infantile, poor, defunct people. But I think what we're seeing here, I think later in a clip also, a person says, we need a revolution like Fidel Castro. We need a revolution like Nelson Mandela. We need a revolution like Hugo Chavez. Like, these aren't people that are just like illiterate to their political situation, right?
Not at all. And that's just it. And I've been saying it for years. I'm sure people have heard me say it before. But, Haitians are very, very politically sophisticated. Every Haitian walks in glory for what their ancestors did, the first and last successful slave revolution in history. And so you're kind of brought up from a very young age with that historical legacy and burden on you. And so you can go talk to a peasant on a mountaintop or a guy in the slums of Port-au-Prince, and he might have a much more sophisticated geopolitical analysis than basically Joe Blow walking down the street in Queens or Memphis or is Los Angeles. You know, so this is the reality in Haiti. And it's not to say that they're impervious to disinformation, and for sure the bourgeois-owned radios and, of course, social media in Haiti has done a lot of vilification of this and made people scared. But they're coming out of it, and there's just a huge ideological struggle going on right now as the revolutionaries called gangs go to social media and make their case and debate and dialogue with the people.
So the next one I want to show is like, this is like some of what I think, like, because I think people that are watching this, maybe you don't know a lot about Haiti or what's going on there. And like, I think in my opinion, it gives a validity to, you know, the struggle of the G9. And it's just to see like really how dire the conditions that people are living in. Because I think here in the United States, like, you know, the level of poverty that Haitian citizens have to endure in the slums is just, you know, I've been to India, I've been to Guatemala, I've been to Colombia, I've been to certain places like that. And it's like, you know, I've never seen such debilitating poverty as some of the things that I saw in the third episode of your series. So if we want to bring up that one, this is from episode 3, and it's a barbecue showing this this neighborhood that's just, yeah, right here. There you go.
Kota cache la cabane là. Oh, OK. Pas vous avez je courir chez. Combien ti moun gen là?
I like this one.
OK.
Flexible.
Ay cabane pour ko dormi. Filmer cabane ni goule. Il y a 4 ti moun. OK? Il y a 4 ti moun mais côté là dormi. Meni. Ah, toi ça besoin filmer toi. Ah. OK? Ça est caille pour 2 moun. Ava go l'autre terre encore.
Oui, ça va pour.
Côté maman ça. Ok, Nene. Ok, monsieur. Mais regardez sous qui ça l'a dormi. Petit moun n'a pas de dire rien. Mais comment c'est sous qui ça ti moun n'a dormi? Pourquoi doit prendre ti moun mais prends sous qui ça ti moun n'a dormi. Prends sous qui ça ti moun n'a dormi. Ok? Mais prends caille là. Nene. Ça son ti moun, Nene. Ok? Nene, monsieur. On ti fille encore, mais on fille. Bien prendre. On filier. On filier, monsieur, Meni. On filier. On filier, OK? On ti moun, on ti fi. Meni, monsieur. Mais pays a, men. Prends les cas là, moi. Prends les a. Mais qui ça moun a dormi? Est-ce qu'on prend les a? Prends les a pour quoi? Prends les a. Prends les a. Meni, faut me camper bien pour moi, Meni. Mais les a qui ça fait pas ici? Mais qu'on fait pas ici à vivre. Je dis à 5 septembre 2021. Mais qu'on fait pas ici à vivre, OK? Votre maman. Nous parlons pas là, Meni, OK? Meni, me remettez le même côté encore, mais quand si mon a dormi. OK? Alors, bonne chose. Chacun le monde entier ouais avec ça yo. D'après le monde entier ouais avec ça parce que d'aller après les chefs gang, il va bon qui chef. On femme c'est ça la guerre c'est déjà pas de caillou et là il y a pour pouvoir tâcher manger balle de là il y a pour manger nous va de vous on va tâcher manger non tu là va venir nous ouais mais qui caillou là ça caillou.
So yeah, like, you know, and this is the other thing too. It's like, you know, Haiti, whether they wanted to or not, was forced to follow what the IMF said. They were forced to do the structural adjustment programs. They were forced to take on those loans. They listened to, you know, whoever it was that has imposed Henri or these other unelected officials, you know, the UN peacekeeping forces and all these things out of their control have come in and said, we know how to fix Haiti. We know what's best for Haiti. And then you have people that are living like this that are saying, you know what, whatever these outside forces are coming in and saying doesn't seem seem to be working very well for us. We're going to do our own thing, and then we denigrate and demonize and vilify them. Like, that's kind of the point that I'm trying to make. It's like
you forgot about the billions of dollars worth of gold that the Marines took in, like, the early, like, well, adjusted for inflation, it's now billions of dollars. But it's just like,
it was 500,000.
It goes a long way.
Then, but yeah, it was gold bars.
But that's all to say nothing about the gunboat diplomacy $150 million debt that the French also extorted out of the country as well. So, I understand that it's a step-by-step process, but I'm saying, it's like, with the IMF and the structural adjustment programs and the aid and things like that, and the UN peacekeeping mission.
What have they done wrong?
These are all the relatively recent developments that have been like, we know how to fix Haiti. We'll get this whipped into shape. And this is how people are living in the present day. Correct.
Right.
So can you guys speak to that? It's like this revolutionary movement that like now is being vilified and denigrated. Meanwhile, it's like this is the direct consequence of everything that the outside world said would fix us.
Right. Well, in another vision, it was originally one film. It was 2.5 hours long, and we said, well, foreign audiences are not going to watch 2.5-hour film on Haiti, so we split it into 3 parts. But really, the first and second episodes are setting up the third, where you really see the reality. You see what people are living in. Of course, if you watched it, the conditions you see are just going to get worse than what you just saw. As, they're slogging through sewage water to, that people are washing themselves in. I mean, it's just a nightmare world, a hellscape. So, and this is what Cherizier is, trying to make known, and he's done it, basically now for the past 4 or 5 years, and he's gotten a movement together, and a lot of it, most of those 4 years, he was fighting with the criminal gangs because he was the sort of vigilante. He was the anti-crime guy, and his coalition was saying, we're going to stamp out crime, and he fought the other ones, but he tried in 2021, in 2022, and I could even say 2023, to overthrow Ariel Henry, who the U.S. had put in as their puppet after they assassinated Jovenel Moïse. I say that because all the circumstantial evidence points to the fact that the U.S. Embassy, at the very least, had foreknowledge, gave a wink and a nod, perhaps. Maybe they played a role operationally in it, but in the killing of Jovenel Moïse. So now he realized that each time he tried to do that, the criminal gangs, which the bourgeoisie would hire and pay and give money and guns and ammo, would hit him from behind, and he couldn't get. So he basically said, there's no way I can go forward without joining with them. And so this is basically a 21st century version of the Comintern, where Mao got together with Chiang Kai-shek to drive out the Japanese. So essentially, and Haitian history has it too. Jean-Jacques Dessalines got together. He was representing what we could call the former slaves. He got with the leader of, I could call the leader of the affranchis, the freedmen, who were sometimes the children of a slave owner and a slave mother.
We called the mulattoes.
Mulatto, yeah, they used to call it the mulatto elite, but we find that a little unscientific.
I think mulatto I'm just referencing C.L.R. James's book that I read, and that's how they're referred to in that book, right? The C.L.R. James book. Yeah.
Maybe I forget if C.L.R. James, but certainly if you go to Yale or Harvard, you're going to learn about the mulatto elite, which gives it a caste. But I mean, there were black people who were in it, there were white people in it, but it was a class called the affranchis, and that was headed by a guy called Alexandre Pétion. And basically, they fought bitterly, Dessalines and Pétion, but eventually they came together and made a united front, and that's what drove out the French. So that was on the Haitian flag now. Union fait la force. Union makes strength. Unity makes strength. Now, 2 years later, Pétion fomented a coup against Dessalines and killed him. So, it doesn't mean the but, you have these conjunctural alliances, and that's what Cherizier has cobbled together now and is trying to marshal in a march towards liberation.
So in terms of marshaling, we have the next picture, and and this is kind of a continuation of the last one. It's continuing to show these dire circumstances of impoverishment that the Haitian people find themselves in, but also it has, his speech that is, a rallying cry to the people in these slums.
Est-ce qu'il y a l'arrêté?
Oui, il doit être arrêté.
Ok, oui, là? Oui. Haïtien, l'on vivre.
Et là, on a vivre dans l'eau, on a vivre là. Nous coulons nous dans l'eau là.
Oui.
Ok. Nous, dans le canal, là, peut pas nos problèmes. Nous ne pouvons pas dormir. Nous entrer la caille, nous. Oui. Là, tu as souffert là. Fadra en bas, nous. Bête, Simoun. Vieux chien. Vieux bête là. Tout le monde là, qui a souffert là. Nous, là, nous étions. Puis en bas, nous faire calme.
Mais est-ce que nous ne pouvons pas et n'est qui qu'on appelle les têtes politiciens. Est-ce qu'il y a un Michel?
Même du tout.
Est-ce que nous pas un premier ministre Ariel Henry vient là? Pas de gouvernement.
Ça doit arriver là, ça doit arriver. Regardez comment nous mettez là. Pour entrer en décalage là. Si bébé a souffert malade, douleur, tout le monde a souffert là. Regardez là. Tout en haut, il faudra tout descendre depuis en haut. Envahis-nous tout là. Là, là, même dans la caillou, on va vivre. Nous, on va vivre là. Tout le monde. Viens, madame ça, ouais là. Notre dos. Entrez notre dos là, donc, madame ça.
Pas de aucun monde qui a fait rien pour nous. Si nous-mêmes, nous ne pouvons pas destin pays nous en main. N'est-ce que les têtes politiciens ne peuvent pas faire rien pour nous. N'est-ce que les têtes bourgeois ne peuvent pas faire rien pour nous. Parce que la mission par eux, c'est que plus comme que possible pour voir les petits femmes de nous à vivre à l'étranger. Nous ne sommes pas besoin quitter le monde entier. Ouais, dans quelles conditions on vivre là. Il y a toujours pas menti. Parce que nous toujours des gens qui parlent au diable pour le peuple. Si nous ne faisons pas partie des peuples là. Parce que si nous ne faisons pas partie des peuples là, nous pas dans conditions ça nous avons. Ça veut dire que il faut que nous faut que nous suivions l'idée zone. Parce que nous disons ça déjà, ça ne va pas là pour faire nous mal. Si on est fait qu'à déjà sur nous, on a l'idée à faire le connaître. Si on est sorti pour que nous, on a l'idée à faire le connaître. Mais son façon, nous-mêmes, bataille pas nous, bataille chaque green malaise parce que nous sommes dans le quartier populaire. Nous tous connaissons même son petit machin de manger. Nous sommes en bas dans le ce matin, petit ghetto mieux. Et parce que ça qui pour pied dans l'eau, pour le monde entier, ouais, misère à vivre. Parce que les gars, ils mentent. Nous avons toujours dit à gourmet pour peuple. Nous avons dit, côté peuple là, nous ne faire partie des peuples là. Si nous faisons partie des peuples là, nous vivons dans des conditions ça, eh bien, ok, je vais toujours répéter l'empile dans nos grands goûts là. Nous mettons pareil, nous mettons quoi, nous disons c'est pas l'empile et pas l'empile l'a fait. Nous mettons en long, nous mettons étiquette gang sous nous, nous mettons étiquette bandit. Ça veut dire, nous faisons le monde entier, ouais, ça a passé et gourmet c'est stratégie. Moi, pour mettre nous dans le jour, nous mettons quoi.
C'est pas tout, oui. Nous devons mourir, oui. Nous devons fermer nous en nous, nous devons fermer nous en nous cannibales. C'est où ça pour nous, à petit, nous devons nous dehors.
So yeah, like, you know, I just thought that was like, you know, just kind of wanted to talk to you is like, you know, what is the sense that you get when you walk around these areas, I guess Delma 6 and places like that with barbecue? Like, do you get the sense that he's an immensely popular person? Like, I would imagine if you were just kind of like a warring, you know, gang, like, you know, guys like that, like, you know, you probably wouldn't be able to walk around so unprotected. I mean, obviously he has a gun and things like that, but it's not like there's any shortage of guns in Haiti or anything like that. So it's like, it does kind of lend credence to the fact that he's an extremely popular figure within those communities.
Well, in Lower Delma 6, 4, and 2, where is his real base, he doesn't go around armed. He goes. I mean, he usually has a pistol in his
back of his waist. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
his back pocket. But no, he's, you know, I mean, he's beloved. You know, people see him as their protector. He's their guy when they need money for a funeral or for a marriage or for, you know, kid to go to school. They come to him, and he, you know, finds a way to get something together. He's the combination mayor, treasurer, protector, police department, and essentially, as the U.S. Has debilitated the Haitian state and the army and the police and the bureaucracy have all withered, the state has become these armed neighborhood organizations. Mm-hmm. Now, some of them turn to criminal activities, as I've mentioned, but Cherizier, and he says it later in the fifth episode that we've done, Haiti Intervention versus Revolution, is that he said, you know, we pride ourselves in the fact that we never sunk to that level. We never did that. You know, we've managed it. And, you know, of course, the disparaging things they say. Oh, no, the guy is just a tool of the bourgeoisie. No, the U.S. and the bourgeoisie have been fighting him now for years, and he's remained consistent. He hasn't sold out, even on one of his live TikTok sessions the other night with 7,000 people listening. You know, he explained one of the U.S. Embassy attempts to buy him off, saying, listen, they gave me a passport. It has my face, but it doesn't have my name. And if I were to present it to U.S. immigration, they would say, welcome home. So, you know, they're trying everything to neutralize him. But, you know, he just puts it out there. And the guy is truly fearless in that endeavor. You know, he's got a huge machine against him, and he's got a lot of kind of unreliable allies. But, you know, people are really inspired by him from my experience watching.
Okay, so at the end of this episode, episode 3, there's a quick like scrolling of like a situation with a fuel hike, but then that is like kind of the first thing that's visited in the redacted episode. So just to kind of summarize that, can we have the first clip of that? It's about 45 seconds of where I think it's Dan Cohen narrating this situation with the fuel hike, because that's kind of like an interesting development that I'd like to discuss as well. So let's show that for our audience, and then I have a follow-up question.
The gas price shot up 128%, putting basic necessities out of reach for all but a tiny minority of Haitians. Protests that had begun in August against spiraling inflation and chronic insecurity exploded. The masses took to the streets and on September 14th erected blockades. Days later, on September 19th, as the Henry regime remained obstinate, Cherizier and the FRG-9 joined the nationwide mobilization, blockading the Vera fuel terminal, one of 3 ports in the capital city that receives energy shipments. Their demand was that of the masses, that Henry roll back the hikes or resign. Still, Henry kept the price hikes in place.
So my first question to you is something that I've noticed, and maybe this is just my selective reading or my biased reading of things, but I feel like every time I hear about one of these inflation things or how expensive gasoline is, it's always in reference to Cuba or Venezuela. It's always like, oh, wow, these socialists got into power and then they, you know, nationalized stuff, and now inflation is skyrocketing and fuel is unaffordable. And look, none of these people can afford gasoline or anything like that. In this episode, they're talking about gasoline skyrocketing to $30 a gallon, which, you know, for a poor nation like Haiti is just an astronomical amount. My question is what is the logic of this fuel hike? Because I know I can say very confidently that it's not because they nationalized any of their oil industries or anything like that. So, like, you know, what is the cause of this inflation and the hike in gas prices? And then also, can you talk about, like, you know, this response from the I'll ask that follow up after you answer that one.
Well, essentially, it's the removal of a subsidy, because gas, like in this country, in the U.S., is subsidized in many cases, in many states, and I mean taxed and subsidized. But in Haiti, it was subsidized by the state, and the U.S. and the IMF and the IDB and the World Bank were on the back of the government saying, hey, you got to cut out that subsidy, you know, let the people, you know, let the market rule, let it do. And so they cut it, and boom, it went up, as we said, 100%. So that's essentially in almost all these countries where you hear about these demonstrations against a fuel hike, and usually it is a fuel hike because the subsidies are cut under pressure from these IFIs, these international financial institutions, which don't want to see any underwriting. And it's the same thing that we're seeing, of course, in this country, where they're trying to slash, you know, every social program, and now they're probably going after Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid too.
Just neoliberalism run wild.
Right, exactly.
So the follow-up question I have to that is that I think there's a lot of like demonizing reports about the G9 and their blockade of the fuel port, you know, nefarious ulterior motives. They're stealing it so they can sell it and all this stuff.